Child's dress tutorial. Remember, this is for the pattern provided in your workbook. Here's a list of suggested resources that you may require. Dress fabric. I would suggest 65 centimetres off the length of a standard roll of fabric. You'll also need the same amount again for the coordinating or lining fabric. I would suggest something without stretch, like a woven cotton, polycotton or gingham. Bias binding only if you wish to edge the dress, and any other additional resources for surface decoration based on your design. A detailed list is in your workbook. Now you need to lay out your pattern pieces. You would normally fold your fabric selvage to selvage so that you are laying your pattern pieces onto a double layer of fabric. If your fabric does have a pattern, you need to pay special attention to make sure if there is a right way up, that when you lay the pattern pieces on top of the fabric, it will be the right way up on the garment. The selvage is the neatened edge which could be found at either end of the roll of fabric. Pay special attention to the symbols on the pattern. You can see the place on fold line butted up against the edge of the fabric, so that once you've cut out the dress, it will be one piece, symmetrical on both sides. Also take note of the grain line on the back piece of the pattern. This line needs to be parallel to the selvage and will also be parallel to the edge of the fabric fold. Now cut out your pattern pieces. Repeat this step for the dress lining fabric. You should have 2 dress front pieces and 4 dress back pieces. Take the dress pieces and lay one back piece right sides together, matching the sides. This means, like mine, if it has a pattern, the pattern will be touching each other. Pin the fabric together at the sides about 1.5 centimetres away from the edge. If you feel more comfortable, use a hand running stitch to sew the edge before going onto the sewing machine. This is called a tacking stitch. Repeat this step for the other side of the fabric. While stitching a straight stitch on the sewing machine, I would suggest a stitch length of 2.5. Pay special attention to the top and bottom of the stitched line and make sure that it is secure. If you have guidelines on your sewing machine, use them to make sure that your line is nice and straight. Now repeat these steps for the dress lining fabric. They look a little bit like angel wings. It is always good practice to fold open the seams and to give them an iron to keep nice and flat. Now lay the fabric and the lining together, right sides together. This means that the seams will be showing on the outside, on the top and the bottom. Try to get both pieces to match as best as possible. If they don't, at this stage, trim off any excess. Flip it over and do the same on the other side. Here's an idea of what you're aiming for. You can see the shape of the dress coming together. Now we're going to sew all the edges together, with the exception of the tops of the shoulder straps. Pin, tack and machine sew 1 centimetre away from the edge around the outside edge, armholes and neckline. Have a look at the diagram in your workbook for a clearer guidance. Please note you mustn't stitch more than 1 centimetre away from the edge, especially at the edges of the straps. Otherwise you will not be able to peel the fabric through during the next stage. Take your time to create a nice smooth curve around the armholes. Now you have machined around each of the edges. You are now going to cut out notches around each curved line. These are small triangular snips. Pay special attention not to cut through to the stitch line. You are cutting up to the line, but do not cut the actual stitch line, otherwise you will create a hole. The purpose of the notches is so that when you turn your fabric to the right way round, it will help lay it flat. Otherwise, you will have buckles and creases around each of these curved areas. Now for the tricky part. You're going to pull through the whole of the dress through one of the shoulder straps. It doesn't matter which one. You will need to roll the fabric from the strap backwards and ease the whole of the fabric through. This will take time and patience. This is what it should look like now at this stage. Once pulled through, all the messy seams should be now concealed inside of the dress, with the exception of the raw edges of the shoulder straps. Now you need to iron your garment flat. To help this, roll the edges between your fingers to get a nice, neat edge. If it helps, add a pin before you take the garment over to the ironing board. Ironing your garment at different stages of the process will help your finished piece look more professional. Now we're ready to look at the shoulder straps. If you are going to keep the straps separate and add fastenings such as a button, and you decide to use bias binding to edge your garment, now's the time to do it. I'm not going to go into too much detail about how to edge your garment, but if you do wish to do this, there are many tutorials that you can follow on the internet. Bias binding is better than ribbon for this particular task because the binding will ease itself around the edges rather than buckling up like ribbon would around each of the curves. If you have decided to stitch your shoulder straps together, do this step first before adding your bias binding. If you're going to stitch your shoulder straps, take the back strap and fold the fabric under each other. If you have decided to stitch the shoulder straps together, take the front strap and fold the fabric inside itself for about 1 centimetre. This hides all the raw edges. Now take the back strap and insert it inside. Once you are happy with the strap length, pin and secure in place and then stitch across that line, That will hold it all nicely together. You may decide to keep the front and the back straps separate and then fastening them together using a type of fastener such as a button or a popper to hold the dress together. If that's the case, then treat each side separately and fold inside each other like you did, but then stitch across each shoulder strap separately. Again, once you're happy with the position, pin and then stitch across using the sewing machine quite close to the edge, a couple of millimetres. Now add your chosen fastener based on your own design idea. You may need to complete independent research into how to attach your specific fastener. The last stage is the top stitch. To give a professional finish to your garment, top stitch around the edge as close as you can. I would suggest 2 to 3 centimetres away from the edge. This can be completed around every single edge of your garment, including the neckline and the armholes. Here's an idea of the completed garment, but yours will include your decorative technique onto your garment based upon your own design ideas.